They called it the Carnival Ghost. One July night in 1956, the heart of a bustling summer festival became the stage for a murder so bold it shook an entire town. A teenager strangled in a crowd of thousands. No witnesses, just a chilling message left on his chest. Feliz Carnaval. What kind of killer moves unseen among laughter and lights, vanishing like a shadow? As the body count rose, a single clue, a scarred stranger with a deadly pattern, turned this case into a true nightmare. Why did he choose the carnival? What secret drove him to hunt in plain sight? I want to know your theories and thoughts. Drop them in the comments below. Thank you for joining me on this wild ride. Let's watch how this story unfolds. For nearly 5 decades, the town of Endish Beach had maintained its summer carnival tradition. Every July, the event transformed the quiet town into a vibrant hub, drawing in residents and visitors from neighboring counties. The 1956 carnival was scheduled to run for 17 days, from July 2nd to July 18th. Records indicate approximately 3,200 attendees on opening day, a number expected to swell over the weekend. On July 13th, 1956, at approximately 8:45 p.m., the body of 19-year-old Ems Kent was discovered. He was found behind a derelict vendor stall on the west end of the fairgrounds. Kent, a temporary employee hired to help vendor Thomas Mark at his candy stand, had been reported missing just 2 hours earlier when he failed to return from his break. Officer Raman Holbrook was the first law enforcement agent to arrive on the scene. His initial report documented that Kent's body showed signs of asphyxiation, with bruising on the neck consistent with manual strangulation. The medical examiner, Dr. Walter Harnett, later confirmed the cause of death, estimating the time of death to be between 6:30 p.m. and 7:15 p.m. What baffled investigators most was the complete lack of witnesses. The carnival was near capacity that night, with hundreds of attendees in close proximity to the crime scene, yet not a single person reported seeing or hearing anything suspicious. This led investigator Terence Mackey to initially theorize that the perpetrator was likely familiar with the carnival's layout and operations. Most disturbing of all was the small note found on Kent's chest, written in black ink on carnival ticket stock. It contained just 2 words: Happy Carnival. The handwriting was described as neat and deliberate, showing no signs of haste or anxiety. Forensic analysis of the note and the surrounding evidence yielded no fingerprints. Kent's personal effects remained untouched. His wallet contained $17.43, and his wristwatch was still ticking when he was found. Robbery was immediately ruled out as a motive. Interviews with fellow carnival workers revealed that Kent had no known enemies, maintained a cordial relationship with his colleagues, and had only been working at the carnival for 3 days. The carnival management, represented by Harold Wiebe, provided authorities with a complete employee payroll and contact information for all vendors and performers. Initial background checks on carnival personnel revealed no immediate suspects with violent criminal histories. The carnival's security detail, consisting of 2 off-duty police officers and 3 civilian guards, had been focused primarily on the midway and entrance areas, leaving the peripheral zones with minimal surveillance. The officer's report noted that the location of the murder, behind an abandoned food stall that had been defunct for at least 2 years, was particularly significant. The area was poorly lit and set back from the main thoroughfares. This suggested the victim had either gone there willingly with someone he trusted or had been lured there under false pretenses. By midnight, local law enforcement had established a perimeter around the crime scene and begun interviewing potential witnesses. The Endish Beach Police Chief, Warren Hay, made the decision to allow the carnival to continue operations the next day, arguing that a cancellation might alert the perpetrator and potentially cause him to flee. However, additional officers were assigned to patrol the grounds, and all carnival employees were required to check in with security at the start and end of their shifts. The small Endish Beach Police Department, which typically handled no more than 1 or 2 homicides a year, now faced a case that would soon draw attention far beyond the town's borders. With limited resources and experience in complex murder investigations, Chief Hay contacted the State Bureau of Investigation, SBI, for assistance, which dispatched Detective Marcus Collins. The next morning, Vesper Matley, a 28-year-old scenic artist, stepped forward. Not the type to typically involve herself in police matters, she was a talented artist working primarily in stage productions and special events. She had joined the Elnich Carnival's decoration crew just 2 weeks before its opening, recruited by the carnival's artistic director, Alan Oregon, who had admired her work in a Springfield stage production earlier that year. Matley's role involved designing and painting backdrop panels, signage and decorative elements throughout the fairgrounds. This position granted her unrestricted access to all areas of the carnival, both during and after operating hours. Her colleagues described her as observant, methodical, and somewhat reserved, qualities that would prove crucial to the investigation. On the morning after Kent's murder, Matley approached Officer Jerome Wilkins near the carnival entrance. According to Wilkins' report, Matley appeared hesitant but determined, asking to speak with someone in charge of the investigation. She was referred to Detective Collins, who had just arrived from the State Bureau that morning. During their initial 3-hour interview, Collins noted that Matley provided information with remarkable precision and detail. She revealed that she had been keeping a personal journal, documenting unusual occurrences at the carnival since July 10th. Her entries were time-stamped, specified locations, and included detailed descriptions of people and conversations she had observed. Matley explained that a particular individual had caught her attention. He had appeared at the carnival during the final days of setup, despite not being on any official rosters. This man, who introduced himself to various staff members as Overbow Ron Winslow, claimed to operate an attraction called the Laughing Room You Can't Enter Twice. However, this attraction appeared on no official carnival map or promotional material. According to Matley's journal, Winslow would arrive on the grounds between 3:15 p.m. and 3:45 p.m. each day, dressed in formal attire that seemed intentionally anachronistic. A dark suit with tails, a gold watch chain, and a cane with a distinctive silver raven head handle. She estimated his age to be between 45 and 55, noting his hair was entirely grey, slicked back severely from a high forehead. His most distinguishing feature was a small scar running vertically through his right eyebrow. Matley had recorded 7 separate instances of Winslow interacting with carnival staff, always briefly and often requesting specific information about facility layouts, schedule changes, or staff rotations. She noted his manner of speaking was peculiar, formal, measured, and with an accent she couldn't quite place, but described as not typically Midwestern. Perhaps most significantly, Matley had observed Winslow speaking with Ems Kent on the afternoon of July the 13th, approximately 3 hours before his estimated time of death. She described their interaction as brief but intense, with Winslow showing Kent something in a small, leather-bound book, before placing a hand on his shoulder and guiding him toward the less crowded eastern area of the fairgrounds. Detective Collins immediately ordered a search for Winslow, but initial attempts to locate him were fruitless. No carnival employee could confirm where Winslow was staying in town, and no local hotel or boarding house had a guest registered under that name. The attraction he supposedly operated, a small tent near the carnival's periphery, was found empty during a search, containing only a simple wooden platform and several unusually arranged mirrors. The investigation into Overbow Ron Winslow began in earnest on July the 14th. Detective Collins assigned Officer Patricia Landy to work with Matley to build a complete profile of the mysterious showman. Landy, who had a background in witness interview techniques, spent 6 hours with Matley, reviewing her journal entries and creating a detailed physical description suitable for law enforcement distribution. Matley's observations proved invaluable. She recalled specific details about Winslow's mannerisms that suggested theatrical training, his precise measured gestures, his perfect posture, and the way he projected his voice even in casual conversation. She noted that despite claiming to run an attraction called The Laughing Room, she had never once seen Winslow laugh or even genuinely smile. Landy interviewed several carnival employees about their interactions with Winslow. Vernon Husley, who operated a shooting gallery next to Winslow's tent, reported that Winslow had specifically asked which carnival workers were new to the circuit this year. The concessions manager, Narada SS, recalled Winslow requesting information on staff break schedules, claiming he needed to coordinate his show times to maximize audience potential. By midday, Detective Collins had expanded the investigation to include a search of newspaper archives and police records from neighboring states. This decision followed Matley's mention that she had read about a similar case in Indiana involving someone who matched Winslow's description. The breakthrough came at 3:17 p.m. when Collins received a telegram from the Indiana State Police. They confirmed that in August 1941, a traveling carnival in Meafield, Indiana, had experienced a similar incident. A showman calling himself Professor Winston had operated a small attraction described as the Cabinet of Impossible Laughter. During that carnival, 2 young employees went missing, only to be found dead days later. Notes bearing the message, "Happy Times Ahead," were found next to each victim. The case went cold, as the showman vanished before police could question him. The physical description of Professor Winston from the 1941 case matched Winslow in several key aspects: the formal Victorian-style suit, the ornate cane, and the distinctive vertical scar through his right eyebrow. The Indiana report, however, described Winston as a man in his late 30s, which would place Winslow in his late 40s in 1956, consistent with Matley's estimate. As this information was being processed, the carnival continued to operate under heightened security. Chief Hay implemented mandatory buddy systems for all carnival employees and increased the police presence throughout the grounds. Detective Collins ordered Officers Wilkins and Landy to conduct surveillance specifically on the area where Winslow's tent was located, with instructions to report immediately if he reappeared. Simultaneously, the forensic examination of the note found on Kent's body yielded limited evidence. The paper was standard carnival ticket stock, available to virtually any worker. The ink was a common black fountain pen ink. Handwriting analysis suggested the author was educated, with a steady hand and possible European influences in their penmanship. As dusk fell on July 14th, Vesper Matley continued her scheduled duties at the carnival, maintaining regular contact with Officer Landy. At approximately 7:40 p.m., Matley reported seeing Winslow near the carousel, engaged in conversation with a young woman she identified as Solace Taro, a 22-year-old attendant from the cotton candy concession. Officer Landy immediately radioed for backup, but by the time more officers arrived at the carousel, Winslow and Taro were gone. A search of the immediate area yielded no results. At 8:15 p.m., Taro failed to return from her break, prompting her supervisor to report her missing. The disappearance of Solace Taro triggered an immediate law enforcement response. Chief Hay ordered a complete lockdown and search of the fairgrounds, while Detective Collins established an incident command center in the administrative trailer. All exits from the fairgrounds were monitored, and officers began checking vehicles attempting to leave. Vesper Matley provided a detailed description of Taro's appearance and attire: a light blue uniform with the carnival logo, white canvas sneakers, and a distinctive silver charm bracelet. Matley also confirmed that Taro had appeared relaxed during her interaction with Winslow, showing no signs of distress or coercion. The initial search proved fruitless. At 10:30 p.m., Chief Hay made the decision to close the carnival early, citing a technical malfunction to avoid causing a panic among the attendees. Once civilians had departed, a more thorough grid search began, including previously inaccessible areas like maintenance sheds, storage containers, and utility tunnels. By 2:15 a.m. on July 15th, the search had yielded nothing. Detective Collins expanded the search perimeter to include the wooded area surrounding the fairgrounds, and requested additional manpower from neighboring jurisdictions. He also ordered a review of all security measures implemented after the Kent murder, seeking to understand how Winslow could have evaded detection. At approximately 6:40 a.m., a carnival employee named Marcus Thunton discovered the body of Solace Taro as he was preparing the main stage for the day's performances. Her body had been positioned behind the main curtain, partially obscured by large speakers. As with Kent, a note was found on her body bearing the same message: Happy Carnival. A preliminary examination by Dr. Harnett indicated that Taro had died of asphyxiation, with neck bruising nearly identical to that found on Kent. The time of death was estimated to be between 8:30 p.m. and 9:45 p.m. the previous night. Like Kent, her belongings were intact, with one exception. The silver charm bracelet Matley had described was missing. The discovery of a second victim with the same modus operandi confirmed investigators' fears. They were dealing with a serial offender. Furthermore, the killer's ability to move a victim across the fairgrounds and place the body in a high-traffic area without being detected demonstrated a profound knowledge of the carnival's operations and security protocols. Detective Collins immediately ordered all carnival personnel to report for individual interviews, which focused on establishing complete timelines for every employee during the critical hours of Taro's murder. Simultaneously, Officer Landy continued to work with Vesper Matley to piece together everything known about Overbo Winslow. Matley's journal documented that on at least 3 occasions, she had observed Winslow returning to a specific area after hours: a service entrance near the old storage sheds on the northwest edge of the fairgrounds. At 11:20 a.m., a search team led by Officer Wilkins investigated the area and discovered a small campsite concealed behind the storage structures. Inside, they found several significant items: a leather-bound journal with entries dating back to 1939, several pieces of theatrical makeup, and a collection of small personal items later identified as belonging to victims of other carnival-related murders across 3 states. Most significantly, they found newspaper clippings referencing unsolved murders at carnivals and fairs in Indiana, 1941, Ohio, 1947, and Kentucky, 1952. In each case, the pattern was strikingly similar. Carnival employees found strangled, notes left on their bodies, and a mysterious showman who vanished as investigations began. By the afternoon of July 15th, law enforcement had initiated a multi-state manhunt for Overbo Winslow. Based on the evidence from his hidden camp, investigators believed they were pursuing a serial killer who had been operating at carnivals and fairs throughout the Midwest for at least 15 years. Chief Hay made the difficult decision to cancel the remainder of the Endich Beach Carnival, citing public safety. Despite objections from carnival management about the financial losses, Hay stood firm, stating that continuing operations would endanger more lives and could compromise the investigation. Detective Collins coordinated with federal authorities, who joined the manhunt given the interstate nature of the crimes. Bulletins with Winslow's description, based primarily on Matley's detailed observations, were distributed to law enforcement agencies nationwide. Forensic examination of the items recovered from Winslow's tent provided significant insight into his methodology. The leather journal contained cryptic entries that appeared to document his victims, though names were never used, only initials and dates. Handwriting analysis confirmed that the same hand had penned both the journal entries and the notes left on the victims. Perhaps most chillingly, the journal contained several pages dedicated to carnival and fair schedules across the Midwest for the coming months, with specific locations circled for what investigators believed were planned future attacks. The collection of personal items found in the tent included 19 different pieces of jewelry, including Solace Taro's missing charm bracelet. These items would eventually be linked to unsolved murders and disappearances at fairs in 4 states between 1939 and 1956. On the morning of July 16th, As the investigation continued, Carnival employees arrived to begin dismantling the attractions. The stage manager, Adwin Pierce, discovered something unusual on the main platform, a carefully folded piece of paper placed squarely in the center of the stage. Unfolded, it contained the message, "Until next summer." The note matched the handwriting of the previous messages and appeared to be a final communication from Winslow. Despite an immediate search of the surrounding area and roadblocks established on all major routes out of Endick Beach, no trace of the suspect was found. The forensic sweep of the fairgrounds yielded limited physical evidence. No fingerprints matching any known individual were found, either at the crime scenes or in Winslow's campsite. Hair samples recovered from the tent were analyzed, but with the limitations of 1956 forensic technology, no conclusive results were obtained. The investigation stretched on for several months, with periodic leads emerging from various locations. In September 1956, a fair worker in Pennsylvania reported an encounter with someone matching Winslow's description, but the individual disappeared before authorities could investigate. Similar reports surfaced from West Virginia in October and Georgia in December, but none led to an arrest. Vesper Matley's contribution to the investigation was formally recognized by the State Bureau of Investigation in November 1956. Her detailed observations and documentation provided the only reliable witness account of the suspect and established the crucial connections to previous cases. In January 1957, Detective Collins compiled a comprehensive case file, including all evidence, witness statements, and forensic findings related to the Endick Beach Carnival murders. This file was distributed to law enforcement nationwide, especially in areas with scheduled carnivals and fairs. Despite these efforts, Overend Winslow, if that was indeed his real name, was never apprehended. The case remains officially unsolved in the state records of Missouri. However, following the distribution of Collins's case file, no further murders matching this specific pattern were reported at carnivals or fairs in the United States for the remainder of the 1950s.